The dry heat of Polly clung to everything like a second skin. In a small bedroom where a ceiling fan labored with a rhythmic metallic click-clack, Rahul lay sprawled across his bed. The blue light of his smartphone illuminated a face etched with longing. On the screen, Adit was laughing. Adit, the comedy influencer with 3 million followers, a jawline that could cut glass, and biceps that strained against the fabric of his fitted t-shirts. Rahul scrolled through a series of reels. Adit's voice, a rich, honeyed baritone, filled the room. He was making a joke about Mumbai traffic, but Rahul wasn't listening to the punchline. He was watching the way Adit's chest heaved when he laughed, the way his thick neck pulsed, and the subtle, tantalizing bulge in his joggers that the camera occasionally caught. "I can't just keep watching you," Rahul whispered, his voice cracking. He had sent a dozen DMs over the last month. Most were ignored. Then one Tuesday, a notification popped up that made Rahul's heart hammer against his ribs. "Adit, you're the kid from Rajasthan who keeps sending me poetry, right?" Rahul's fingers trembled as he typed. "Rahul, yes, I'm sorry if I'm annoying. I really admire you." "Adit, admire is a polite word for it. Your messages sound like you want to eat me alive." "You're 19, right?" Rahul, "Yes." "Adit, listen, I'm in a weird place. I need a certain kind of image for a new project, something about mentorship and youthful energy. I'm open to a proposal. If you can afford the travel and a fee, I'll give you a week of my undivided attention. No cameras, no fans, just us. We call it a contract." Rahul didn't hesitate. He emptied his savings, borrowed from a cousin under the guise of a computer course, and bought a one-way ticket to Mumbai. The humidity of Mumbai hit him like a wet towel the moment he stepped off the train. He took a cab to a luxury high-rise in Bandra, his stomach twisting in knots. When the door to the penthouse opened, the air conditioning breathed a scent of sandalwood and expensive cologne over him. Adit stood there. He was larger in person, a mountain of a man. He wore a sleeveless gym shirt that left nothing to the imagination. His shoulders were boulders, and his veins traced maps across his thick forearms. His eyes were dark, scanning Rahul from head to toe with a predatory curiosity. "You're smaller than you sounded in your letters," Adit said, a smirk playing on his lips. I'm here," Rahul stammered, clutching his backpack. Adit stepped back, gesturing him inside. "The contract is simple, Rahul. You paid for the experience. For 7 days I am yours. I'll take you where I want, tell you what to do, and we'll explore exactly how much you admire me. But when the clock hits midnight on the 7th day, you go back to Polly. No strings, no claims, no I love yous. Understood?" "Understood," Rahul breathed, though his gaze was locked on the heavy muscle of Adit's thigh. "Good, now strip. I want to see what I'm working with." The command was sharp. Rahul's breath hitched. He slowly peeled off his cot shirt, then his jeans, leaving him shivering in only his briefs. Adit walked around him, the heavy tread of his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. He stopped behind Rahul, his heat radiating through the air. "You're shaking," Adit murmured, his voice dropping an octave. He reached out, a large, calloused hand gripping the back of Rahul's neck, squeezing gently. "Is the big bad influencer scaring you?" "No," Rahul lied, his voice a whisper. I've dreamed about this." Adit chuckled, a low vibration that Rahul felt in his own spine. "Dreams are for children, this is reality." Adit turned him around and pushed him back against the cool wall. He didn't kiss him immediately. Instead, he pressed his body against Rahul's. The contrast was staggering. Rahul felt fragile, a sapling against an ancient oak. He could feel the hard ridge of Adit's cock pressing through the joggers, a thick, uncompromising length that promised a beautiful kind of pain. "I want to see it," Adit commanded. "The look on your face when you finally get what you paid for." Adit reached down, gripping the waistband of his own joggers and sliding them down in one fluid motion. Rahul gasped. Adit's cock sprang free, a monstrous, vein-ribbed pillar of flesh that looked almost too large for his body. It was thick, the head a deep swollen purple, already weeping a bead of clear precum. The weight of it seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Rahul's mouth hung open. "Oh God, don't just stare at it, Rahul. Use that mouth you used to write those poems." Rahul sank to his knees, his heart racing. He reached out, his small hand barely able to wrap around the circumference of the shaft. The skin was hot, velvet smooth, but stretched tight over hard muscle. He leaned in, the scent of musk and salt filling his nostrils. He flicked his tongue across the glands, tasting the salty tang of precum. Adit groaned, his fingers digging into Rahul's hair, pulling his head forward. "Suck it, all of it." Rahul opened wide, sliding his lips over the flared head. The size was overwhelming. As he pushed deeper, his throat constricted, the thick head hitting the back of his throat. Gagged slightly, his eyes watering, but the sound of Adit's guttural moan encouraged him. "Fuck, you're tight," Adit hissed. Rahul worked his mouth with a desperate fervor, his tongue swirling around the rim of the glands while his hand pumped the base. He heard the wet, schlicking sound of saliva lubricating the friction. Adit's hips began to thrust instinctively, driving deeper into Rahul's mouth, the thick shaft filling every millimeter of space. Adit suddenly pulled him up, lifting him as if he weighed nothing. He carried Rahul to the oversized leather sofa and flipped him over, pressing his chest into the cushions. "I didn't tell you that you could stop," Adit whispered into his ear, his breath hot. Adit didn't use a condom. The contract had been loosely discussed, and in the heat of the moment the raw desire overrode caution. He produced a bottle of lubricant, the cool gel sliding over Rahul's trembling entrance. Adit's fingers pushed in first, stretching him, the sound of squelching lubricant filling the quiet room. "You're so small," Adit murmured, his voice thick with lust. "I'm going to stretch you wide open." Rahul let out a whimpering moan, his fingers clawing at the leather, then Adit positioned himself. The first push was a shock. Rahul felt his walls scream as the massive head of Adit's cock forced its way inside. He felt a moment of pure blinding pressure, the sensation of being split apart. Wait, Rahul gasped. Shhh, just breathe, take it all, Adit commanded. Adit pushed further, a slow, agonizingly delicious invasion. He slid in inch by inch, the thick shaft displacing everything inside Rahul. When he finally bottomed out, his pelvic bones slamming against Rahul's buttocks with a heavy thud, Rahul let out a loud, shattered cry. He felt full stuffed to the point of bursting. Adit stayed still for a moment, letting Rahul adjust. Then he began to move. The friction was intense. With every thrust there was a wet slapping sound, the sound of Adit's heavy balls drumming against Rahul's skin. Schlick, squelch, slap. The rhythm grew faster, more violent. Adit's muscular arms locked around Rahul's waist, pulling him back harder to ensure every thrust hit the deepest part of his prostate. You like this? Adit growled, his voice sounding like grinding gravel. Is this what you wanted from your idol? Yes, please, more, Rahul sobbed, his head tossing from side to side. The pleasure was an avalanche. Rahul could feel the internal friction, the way Adit's cock seemed to grip his internals. He felt the air being pushed out of his lungs with every heavy plunge. Adit was relentless, his breath coming in harsh, jagged bursts. As Adit reached his peak, he let out a roar, his muscles locking tight. He thrust one last time, burying himself to the hilt, and unloaded. Rahul felt the hot, thick jets of semen pooling deep inside him, filling his rectum with a searing warmth. Adit collapsed on top of him, their sweat-slicked skin sticking together, the scent of sex and exertion heavy in the air. For the next 6 days, the penthouse became a sanctuary of hedonism. They didn't just have sex, they talked. They spent hours on the balcony overlooking the shimmering lights of Mumbai. Why the comedy? Rahul asked one evening, leaning his head against Adit's massive shoulder. You seem so serious when the camera is off. Adit sighed, swirling a glass of amber liquid. Comedy is a mask, kid. If you make people laugh, they don't ask why you're lonely. They don't ask why your father expects you to be a corporate shark when all you want to do is create. It's a shield. Rahul looked up at him, his eyes soft. I don't see a mask, I see you. Adit looked at him, and for the first time the predatory smirk was gone. There was something raw in his eyes, a flicker of genuine affection, perhaps even fear. He reached out, tracing the line of Rahul's jaw. You're too innocent for this city, Rahul, and you're definitely too innocent for me. I'm not, Rahul insisted, sliding his hand down to Adit's thigh. I know what I feel. Feelings aren't in the contract, Adit whispered, but he leaned down and kissed him. It wasn't a dominant kiss, it was slow, tasting of whiskey and longing, their tongues intertwining in a soft, rhythmic dance. But as the 7th day approached, the atmosphere shifted. Adit became distant. The laughter vanished, replaced by a cold, professional efficiency. On the final night, after a particularly intense session of sex that felt more like a goodbye than a celebration, Adit stood by the window, his back to Rahul. The car is waiting downstairs to take you to the station, Adit said. His voice was flat. Rahul sat up, the sheets draped around his waist. Adit, we can't just end it. I love you. I know it's fast, but I do. Adit turned around. The mask was back. He looked at Rahul not as a lover but as a transaction. Love, Rahul, look at us. I'm 32, a public figure in a country that still whispers about men like us. You're a 19-year-old boy from a small town. This was a contract, a fantasy. You paid for a week of my time and I gave it to you. You felt it too, Rahul shouted, his voice cracking. The way you looked at me on the balcony, the way you touched me when the lights were off. That was the performance, Adit lied, his voice cutting like a knife. I'm a professional, remember, now get your clothes, I have a shoot in an hour. The ride to the station was a blur of gray concrete and salty tears. Rahul felt a void in his chest that no amount of poetry could fill. He returned to Polly, the dry heat now feeling like a prison. He tried to go back to his life, college, family dinners, the click-clack of the ceiling fan, but he was a ghost. He stopped watching Adit's videos. He couldn't bear the sound of that honeyed voice, knowing it had been used to lie to him. Back in Mumbai, Adit was spiraling. He stood in his penthouse, the silence deafening. He looked at the spot on the leather sofa where Rahul had cried out his name. He tried to film a new sketch, but he couldn't find the punchline. Every time he looked into the camera, he saw Rahul's wide, trusting eyes. He found himself scrolling through those old DMs. I really admire you. Adit threw his phone across the room. He was terrified. He had spent his entire life building a fortress of fame and muscle to keep people out, and a 19-year-old boy from Rajasthan had walked right through the gates. He missed the way Rahul smelled of soap and nervousness. He missed the way the boy's small hands felt against his chest. 3 months passed. Adit's engagement numbers dropped. His manager complained that he seemed off, that the spark was gone. One night, Adit sat in the dark, drinking alone. He thought about the societal pressure, the expectations of his family in Delhi, the fragile nature of his brand. He thought about the correct way to live. Then he thought about the silence in his bed. Fuck the contract, he whispered. He didn't call, he didn't text. He packed a bag and flew to Rajasthan. Polly was an assault on the senses. The dust swirled in orange clouds and the air smelled of fried kakoris and livestock. Adit felt absurdly out of place in his designer linen shirt and sunglasses, stepping out of a taxi in a narrow alleyway. He found the house. It was a modest structure with a bright blue door. He saw Rahul sitting on a porch swing reading a book. He looked thinner, his eyes shadowed. Rahul looked up. The book slipped from his fingers, hitting the dusty ground with a thud. Adit, Rahul's voice was a ghost of a sound. Adit walked toward him, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel. He stopped a few feet away, the Rajasthan sun beating down on them. I'm a fucking idiot, Adit said, his voice rough. Rahul stood up, his expression guarded. Why are you here? Did you forget to charge me for something? Adit winced. I deserve that and everything else you want to throw at me. I tried to pretend it was a business deal because I was scared, Rahul. I was scared of how much I actually wanted you. I was scared that a kid from Pali could make me feel things I've spent a decade suppressing. You broke me, Rahul whispered, tears welling up. You told me it was a performance. It was the only performance I ever failed. Adit stepped closer, the scent of his sandalwood cologne mixing with the dry dust. I can't go back to Mumbai without you. Not because of a contract, but because I'm empty without you. Rahul looked at him, the muscular frame, the arrogant jaw, now softened by genuine regret. My parents. The people here, they won't understand. It's not like Mumbai. I don't care about the people here and I don't care about the people there, Adit said, reaching out to cup Rahul's face. Let them whisper, let them stare. I'd rather be a scandal with you than a success alone. Rahul let out a sob and collapsed into Adit's chest. Adit wrapped his massive arms around him, squeezing him tight, anchoring him. I still love you, Rahul whimpered into his shirt. I know, Adit whispered, kissing the top of his head. And God help me, I love you too. Adit led him inside the house, the blue door closing behind them. The air was hot, and the ceiling fan clicked with a rhythmic metallic sound, but for the first time in months, the silence was gone. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Adit pushed Rahul against the wall of the small hallway, his hunger renewed and desperate. He stripped Rahul's clothes off with a frantic energy, his large hands shaking. I missed you so much it felt like I was dying, Adit groaned, his voice a guttural rasp. He knelt before Rahul, his mouth finding the boy's cock with an intensity that made Rahul scream. Adit sucked him deep, his tongue swirling around the head, the sound of wet, sloppy suction echoing in the narrow hall. Rahul gripped Adit's thick shoulders, his nails digging into the muscle. Adit stood up, his own cock already straining, a monstrous pillar of heat. He didn't use lubricant this time, he didn't need to. The memory of Rahul's body was etched into his skin. He lifted Rahul, the boy's legs wrapping around his waist. As Adit drove himself inside, the sensation was an explosion. It wasn't the clinical precision of the contract, it was a collision of two souls. You're mine, Adit hissed, his voice thick with possession. No contracts, no fees, just mine. Yes, Rahul gasped, his head hitting the wall with every heavy thrust. Yours, always yours. The sounds returned, the schlicking of skin, the squelching of their joined bodies, the heavy, rhythmic slap of Adit's balls against Rahul's thighs. It was messy, visceral, and raw. Adit's thrusts were deep and punishing, filling Rahul completely, pushing him toward a cliff of pleasure. As they peaked together, Adit let out a loud, echoing roar, his body shuddering as he poured himself into Rahul once again. They stayed locked together for a long time, breathing in the scent of each other, the dust of Rajasthan settling around them like a blanket. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be angry phone calls from parents, hateful comments on social media, and the crushing weight of societal expectation. But as Adit held Rahul in the dim light of the hallway, he knew that for the first time in his life he wasn't wearing a mask. He was simply a man, deeply in love with a boy who had taught him that the only contract worth signing was the one written in the heart.